Let's jump right into this explainer. We are looking at a massive paradigm shift in how ambitious tech professionals have to build their careers in the age of agentic coding. I mean, think about it. Building software has literally never been more accessible, and AI models are totally upending the baseline of what makes a knowledge worker valuable. If you want to position yourself for the next decade, well, that old career playbook, toss it out. It's just not going to cut it anymore. We are rapidly moving away from an era of problem solvers and straight into the era of problem finders. To really grasp why this shift is happening, we've got to talk about loss functions. Now, a loss function is essentially just a well-defined problem that gets graded against a known answer. Honestly, traditional school brilliantly conditions us for this, right? You get a syllabus, you take a test, and there's a clear answer key. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. AI models are getting exceptionally good at conquering absolutely anything you can write a loss function for. If a task is neatly scoped and has a clear metric for success, you better believe an agent is going to learn how to crush it efficiently.
So, this brings up a pretty existential dilemma for anyone in the workforce right now. What happens to your career when AI perfectly solves the loss function? If an ever-powerful agent can just effortlessly handle those complex, well-defined problems we used to get paid handsomely to figure out, where does our human value actually sit? Well, the answer is that the most valuable work of the next decade becomes everything that cannot be neatly graded within the span of a model's training. It's all about navigating that uncharted territory.
And that beautifully illustrates our very first new rule of value. We have to completely rethink what resources are actually scarce. Thanks to AI and what some folks are calling vibe coding, getting access to capital and turning a quick bug is easier than ever before. Those are abundant resources now. The true limited resources, the things you absolutely must ruthlessly prioritize today, are your time, your genuine relationships with other humans, and your reputation. Proven excellence in these areas is the absolute highest signal you can generate in a super noisy, AI-saturated market. Let's actually look at how this plays out in the real world. The author of our source material actually lived this exact scenario. They had these incredibly lucrative quant offers sitting on the table, way higher guaranteed cash. But they walked away from them to join Scale AI instead. Why? Because they optimized for the limited resources. They wanted that specific community and exposure to various LLM inference providers. And man, that decision compounded. The network they built over at Scale directly paved the way for massive future opportunities at DeepMind and OpenAI. It totally proves that optimizing for learning and relationships yields a much, much bigger prize than just chasing quick capital. Which brings us to Section 1, Problem Finders, the new hiring standard. Let's see how this mindset shifts what highly agent-native companies are actually looking for during interviews. Okay, the reality inside a fully agent-native company right now is that no one is manually typing out lines of code anymore. So those traditional LeetCode code style questions or even standard system design interviews, they are completely uncorrelated with actual job performance nowadays. Instead, modern interviews are designed to measure something totally different. How quickly can you grok a new environment and figure out which problems are actually worth solving? Once you do that, it's all about how expertly you can allocate your time and your AI tokens to solve them. Problem selection and resource allocation. Those are your new technical fundamentals. Now, you might hear all this and feel a little discouraged, thinking, hey, if agents can just solve all my problem sets, there's no room for me to shine. But in practice, interviewers are seeing massive variance in candidate performance. Even when people are collaborating with the exact same agents, they require vastly different amounts of time and tokens to actually arrive at a solution. And that is because human intuition and outside context are still incredibly highly prized. The absolute best candidates have a track record of immersing themselves in high-growth environments where the meaningful problems far outnumber the people available to solve them. Moving right along to Section 2, the bitter lesson, and the pursuit of ambitious problems. So if you know AI, you know the bitter lesson, the idea that scaling general methods always ends up beating task-specific tweaks. For your career, applying this means real, durable value is only built by having an extreme focus on truly ambitious problems. Look, literally anyone can build simple software systems with relative ease today, so you just can't settle for those easy ones anymore. When you're choosing a company, you've got to evaluate them on whether they are tackling the most ambitious version of a problem. Like, do they actually have a shot at solving it? And when you're picking your role, you need to make absolutely sure it places you right on the frontier of that exact problem. Once you've found that problem, we hit Section 3, Sprint the Last Mile, where iteration is key. So this is how you differentiate your work from the median output of a machine. Think about Alfred Lin's famous startup rule. The final 10% of a project is both 90% of the work and 90% of the reward. AI has aggressively polarized these outcomes. Right now, the median result out there is just whatever an agent can spit out from a sloppy prompt. True value comes from iteration. It comes from stepping up and spending just a little more time on the polish, the clean architecture, the scalability, and the creativity. That tiny extra slice of effort, that is exactly what elevates a project from a baseline prompt to an actual breakthrough. To understand how to capture the rewards of that last mile, we can actually look to a sports metric. And hey, even if you've never kicked a soccer ball in your life, stick with me because this matters for your career. In soccer, there's a metric called XG, or expected goals. It calculates how many goals a team should score based on the quality of their opportunities, factoring in distance, angles, where the goalie is, all of that. This translates perfectly to your career strategy. Just positioning yourself to actually see the high-quality opportunities is the critical first step to scoring those career goals. And here's how that XG analogy plays out in real life. Back in 2023, our source author actually turned down job offers from Anthropic, back when it was only about 50 people, and Cursor, when it had just 2 non-founder employees. I mean, those were incredibly high XG opportunities, right? But they passed on them to work on frontier model inference and training at DeepMind, and then later moved over to OpenAI. They had built the reputation and expertise to generate these massive opportunities, but they ultimately chose the companies that aligned deeply with their specific interests, cultural fit, and long-term goals. They didn't just blindly anchor onto an early product demo. Looking at high-level career moves like that reveals a pretty foundational truth about our future. Artificial superintelligence, or ASI, is simply not going to replace all human knowledge work. And why is that? Because we humans possess differential capabilities that ASI just doesn't have. We are uniquely suited to select the meaningful, ambitious problems that ASI should be aimed at in the first place. And we have the expertise to allocate capital effectively to solve them. Taking a strong personal reputation and transforming it into unique, high-leverage opportunities, that is a deeply human skill that machines just cannot replicate. Which leads us to Section 4, Break into Research, the New Mentality. If you want to position yourself for these high XG moments, you're probably wondering how you even break into the research side of things without being stuck inside some lockdown elite lab. Well, the good news is, modern research is highly accessible. Drawing on some great advice from Vlad, a lead over on the Gemini team, you can actually start today. You can use existing models to distill your own intuitions into concrete evaluations. You can jump onto public optimization leaderboards, like the ones Keller Jordan posts about, to explore ideas in a structured way. And you can even grab academic compute credits from providers like Modal to test out your theories. Understanding exactly why most ideas fail at scale is the crucial first step to discovering what actually works. There is a super powerful truth you've got to remember here. Being a researcher is a mentality. It is not an occupation. Frontier research isn't just a fancy job title on LinkedIn. It is the act of being relentlessly curious. It's fighting against infrastructure to implement new ideas, it's understanding complex systems well enough to debug them, and it's being able to articulate your results clearly enough to secure more compute. You do not need permission, and you definitely don't need a desk at a frontier lab to start doing exactly this kind of work today. The world is clearly still full of massive opportunities, provided you know where to look and how to adapt. By shifting your mindset from being a mere problem solver to becoming a relentless problem finder, you take complete control of your career in the AI era. You're moving away from those easily automated loss functions and heading straight toward the ambitious, the undefined, and the deeply human work. So, keeping this entirely new framework in mind, what ambitious problem are you going to find and solve today?